Before we begin this video's topic, I would like to take a moment to address all of you directly. All my subscribers, supporters, commentators, people who are just coming around for another look at things. I just wanted to say thank you, and in regards to why I chose Sonic.exe to talk about, I wouldn't say that this is a topic that's been requested, but it is something that was compared to the Blue Balls incident a lot in terms of a Friday Night Funkin' mod. And while I did think about talking about it, it was one of those things where it was popular, it seemed done to death by everybody, and I just didn't want to come off as somebody that was just, doing something for popular sake. But because of the support all of you have given me, I feel that this is something I can cover without coming off as some Johnny-come-lately, some guy who just wants to get easy views on YouTube. I think by now I've shown I'm able to look deeper into things, give a few ideas and theories about stuff, and more or less keep things interesting, if not entertaining. Now, I'll save some more discussion about that and the influence of my subscribers and viewers at the end of the video, but for now, let's get into the Sonic.exe family of works, because holy crap, was there a lot to see about this. Sonic.exe got its life as a creepypasta a while back, and if you don't know what that is, just think of campfire stories that are shared around forums or just online in general. Now, it's known for being two things. One of the earliest, if not first, haunted video game creepypasta, and being absolutely bad. Now, to be fair, it does have some scary ideas, at least, that just were implemented very weakly. Overall, it takes a very slasher, B-horror movie approach to everything, and the spelling, composition, cliches everywhere, and a lot of repetition about certain aspects of the writing, it just wouldn't pass muster in any English class. The story goes that some guy named Tom gets a burnt disc in the mail from his friend with a note to destroy the disc. So of course Tom wonders what's on it, boots it up, and starts playing a creepy version of Sonic the Hedgehog. Only this time around, Sonic is apparently some evil entity pretending to be Sonic, and is bloodily killing friends and enemies from the game, before taunting Tom himself, and then he finds a scary plush of Sonic on the bed. That's how it ends. Now, the writer later came out with a sequel, which I feel was slightly better, if only in the concept of it. This time, a detective is investigating mysterious murders linked to the game, as well as a cult that's trying to spread it around so the entity X, which is who the evil Sonic really is, can wipe out humanity. Honestly, the whole thing with one disc being what spreads it feels really stupid. Download sites were around back then, and were probably even more prevalent then than they are today. If it was just a basic .exe file this thing was, it could have been instead spread on some website or Napster masquerading as the original game it's pretending to be. Instead, the idea is that this cult runs out and finds where people died and tries to steal the CD back before the cops can get it. Then, somehow, with no further explanation, it just shows up in other places. From what I understand at the time, people did treat the story as good-ish. I get the feeling it was a we like it because it's all we've seen so far kind of thing, and eventually as time went on it became near universally recognized as bad. I'm glossing over a lot and being vague about this and what's coming up because I don't think it's worth getting into a detailed timeline of events. But it started up high and fell down low, as better creepy game stories like Ben Drowned or the Godzilla NES creepypasta began coming out. These days, I think people like Sonic.exe more for what it helps start than for what it is. This thing stumbled so that other stories could walk and run. Now, to give you an idea of what we got with this story's writing, let me start by saying that just how an author writes can be something memorable and entertaining in of itself. Douglas Adams, I feel, is a champion of being able to do this. Some of this author's descriptions we get include things like hyper-realistic blood and fur. This was a term bouncing around horror creepypastas at the time, and I think we can already see the flaw in it. In short, we get this word, and it might as well be shorthand for, "Now is when you should feel creeped out."
Scream.
Now, the part about the hyper-realistic fur goes into a little more detail about why he's creeped out by it. If he just focused on that, then we ourselves would have felt that growing dread and unease about what was unnatural about what he was seeing on the television screen. And this sort of goes into something I also brought up in my first Danganronpa video, where I said there's a clear difference in making the viewer or readers feel what you want them to versus making them feel they're being told how to feel. And to give it a little bit of an example with this, in the Godzilla NES creepypasta, to bring that up again, there's moments where he's talking about how he isn't sure how or if the NES was even capable of showing what he was seeing on the screen, giving us an example of why we should feel creeped out instead of just telling us to be creeped out. Other things about the descriptions include things like constantly telling us the music sounded like other video game soundtracks that were played in reverse, or just soundtracks from other popular creepy games. Of course, that description gets us wondering how Tom would know that off the top of his head, like he makes a habit of listening to music backwards for some reason. And there are constant moments of giving specific times that things lasted or occurred. Now here's the image that gives us when, and I'm effectively quoting here, "I screamed for a literal split second." Ah! Look, knowing that you screamed was enough. Now, to give credit, again, I'll point out that the concept of X is an interesting idea. He's a monstrous creature that's stuck in a video game, sucking in souls of the people he kills to torture them forever in the guise of characters in the video game itself. It's almost like he's a Sonic the Hedgehog Cenobite. There's an idea for a remake for you. Also, I feel like the sequel, the way it was written, would have been better if it came out as the first story. Having the detective follow a trail of mysterious murders where the only connection is destroyed computers with a mysterious game file on them, leading to him discovering the truth about what the game is and the monster behind it, was an interesting way to present things, and if time was taken to flesh it out a little bit more, could have been something much better. But at the very least, you could say the sequel was a small step forward in terms of quality. A very small step, but at least it went forward. And the author eventually remade the whole thing into a more short story that was, again, another small step forward in quality. I think at this point in time, it would have passed with a D or something, but in the end, the author wouldn't get the chance to get any better. I went through the bad, tried to find some good. Here's where we get ugly. Now, as I mentioned before in my Danganronpa video, and will probably mention again in the future, hard work on something does not automatically make it good. But all creators should be prepared for honest criticism and some people just not liking the style of whatever it is you're doing. Some people might not like your music, some people might not like the art. You just gotta give and take on things. You can't please all the people all the time. However, this fact is something that the writer of Sonic.exe apparently didn't agree with. When consensus was reached about the creepypasta being bad, it was moved to a site dedicated to bad creepypastas. This led to the author going on a bunch of rants to defend his, quote, masterpiece, some of which are included with the original creepypastas. By now you probably noticed I haven't given his name. It's because I don't want there to be other people looking for excuses to go harassing or bugging people about stuff like this, and other things coming up. A bridge-burning spree like this isn't surprising online, but there was more he was doing that came to light about summertime of 2021. Not only was he emotionally abusive toward his at-the-time girlfriend, again no names, but he was doing very adult roleplay chat sessions with very not adult minors. As a consequence of all this, official ownership of the Sonic.exe creepypasta and, in general, story and characters, I suppose, went to somebody named Astronomicon X. And as far as I understand, they're working on a new official version of the story where it's a horror comedy. I like to imagine it's going to be about X being in a copy of Sonic 2006. That would really give him a reason to hate humanity. But that's just me coming up with some inspiration from a bad idea to see how it could be done better. Showing that even something that's bad can still give inspiration, or even in some cases respected, which is something that this story continues to do to this day. Mostly because it was where the inspiration came from for Miss Crimson deciding to make a game to actually replicate the story's experience. And it was this game that showed there was actually a way to make this story scary. If that lead-in didn't give you the hint, unlike the original creepypasta, the game is actually fairly good, if basic in how it's played. You play through the characters and scenarios described in the story, and it's faithful to the events, so expect a lot of death and jump scares. However, there's also some instances of strobing and flashing lights, so don't play this thing if it'll actually hurt you. That said, the game's final version has some expanded moments and secret areas to play, and when it breaks away from the confines of the source material, it does a great job of showing how creepy a game like this can actually be. If there were any Sega Genesis games that actually got as creepy as this in terms of atmosphere and what it's able to show, I want to know what they were. And if there weren't any, then that's a damn shame. To expand on the experience, there's a bit of a secret stage to find if you collect all 3 of the negative rings, where you can play as Sonic traveling through the game as well. A sequel game was made and offered a similar experience where you play as Amy, Cream, and Sally, and it's much shorter, but it also has some nifty tricks and traps in there to keep you interested. Miss Crimson has made it clear there won't be any more updates or games for Sonic.exe stuff. In their own words, it was never a serious project. However, they are being serious with their work on a project called Shrouded, so keep an eye on that. Look, they gave us the Sonic.exe games for free. I think we can repay that by giving a little look-see at what else they're doing, right? So for a while, the only good thing that came out of the creepypasta was a quick and dirty experimental game that still managed to be creepy and unnerving. People liked it, and they had good reason to. Now, plenty of other fan games were made, other fan stories popped up here and there, trying to create an actual scary story from the ideas, and in general, the game got more attention and love than the original creepypasta. Now, the story of Sonic.exe could have ended here, on something of a high note, or at least higher than the note it had before. But a few other people had plans, wanting to find a new way to share Sonic.exe, as if the cult was starting to form in our real world. Okay, it was nothing sinister. The Friday Night Funkin' mod versus Sonic.exe is a horror mod, but as time went on, it comes off more as a sort of celebration of the story and game than something meant to recreate it as a serious horror story, though it does have moments of that too. It's technically had 3 versions released, and I'll explain that later. But each update introduced new and updated characters and songs to play, with some updated artwork. And like any good Friday Night Funkin' mod, the songs are very good. Most of the time the songs use music and sound effects from the fan game or the actual Sonic games, which of course makes sense. But even if it wasn't, it still works pretty well, and in a couple of instances you have to really listen to catch what music they're basing the songs off of. Again, this is a mod that celebrates the creepypasta and even the Sonic franchise and fandom itself, to the point that unlocking special credits and dedications, as well as the extra songs, utilizes a sound test menu evoking the cheat codes in the classic Sonic games. So, I'm sure the first question we need to get out of the way is this. Have I gotten any better since my Blue Balls incident videos? Kinda. I mean, I have improved, but I'm no sticky BM here. Versus Sonic.exe is much more forgiving in timing, and I did keep up with it fairly often, but other times I had to do something a lot of you Friday Night Funkin' players are going to hate me for. I used to do fairly decent in DDR games up until recently. You kinda need working legs for that. But in DDR games, there was no penalty for hitting all 4 notes at once on a controller outside of your timing. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there's a right way and a wrong way to get through these songs, and I did the wrong way, slapping all 4 keys at once as much as I could to keep from failing. Now, you can't do this in the actual Friday Night Funkin' games, so I think it has something to do with either the engines the mod uses or how it was programmed. Also, there's a few songs where you can't really get away with that, thanks to something called Phantom Notes, and I'll point those out later. Now, I did try a few more times after recording and found I am better at playing in windowed mode versus full screen without having to get slap happy, so maybe it was just me being able to see arrows easier in that form, but something to consider. There are difficulty levels like in the original game, but playing on easy doesn't unlock anything, and the only way to get to the sound test to unlock the extra songs and secrets is to finish the story mode on hard, which makes me wonder why bother, other than the practice. And in any of the versions you play, the songs that are unlocked don't have difficulty selections either, so be ready for that. Now, if you want to skip unlocking everything to play the songs, then just play the latest release. Though since it's an unfinished build, a couple of the songs aren't actually in the game and will crash if you try to play them. So, why was it unfinished? What happened there? Well, unsurprisingly, the explosion in popularity that this mod got led to further development on it, trying to come out with new updates, new characters, new songs, and new people joining and leaving the team constantly. As you can imagine, this desire to keep building something bigger and better led to an amount of self-expectation, among other things, that built stress on the team until the whole thing eventually imploded like a leaky submarine. That is the reason why the project was cancelled, and eventually a link to the unfinished build was released on the Game Banana page with the rest of the finished mod versions, so that all the work they did had something that people could play. However, people that followed this project know that there were a few other things going on behind the scenes that weren't helping matters. While it would be easy to skip over all this and just move on, I feel that now's a good time to talk about it. We're going to get very ugly again, but only because I want to get it over with now before I go back to talking about the good stuff. And I will say clearly, once more, that no matter who I bring up or talk about, harassment is never an appropriate response. Not to the team members that left the project for stress, not to the ones kicked out for varying reasons, and not to fans or detractors of anything. And while I'll avoid using names again, some of them are still in the credits, depending on which version of the game you play. So to be quick about this, there were 2 groomers kicked off the team, 1 person that was apparently supporting the actions of one of the previous ones, and 1 person given the boot for being involved in some kind of fake leak that revealed IP addresses. All of this occurred after version 2 was released for the game, and that's why certain songs and characters aren't visible in the 2.5 unfinished build. The team decided that it would be best to remove and forbid the use of characters, songs, stages, things such as that were created and worked on by the more egregious offenders. And out of respect for that, I will not be covering those songs or characters in this video, regardless of whether or not they're playable in version 2.0. And while we're here, let's take a moment to be the adults in the room and discuss this issue. Everybody that is watching this video is old enough to know whether or not something that they want to do is a good idea, a bad idea, or a good thing or a bad thing. We all know what lines we're about to cross, and before you do so, get help. And if you know somebody or are associated with somebody who's getting help before they do things, support them. Now, I don't mean talk to them constantly about it. I just mean make them feel as if they're not being ostracized or pushed away because they recognize that they're going to do something bad and they're trying to do something to keep themselves from being bad and make themselves a better person. Now, if they've already done something, that's a different discussion, but we're not going to go that far. The point being, there's plenty of places people can go to discuss thoughts in their heads, be it harm toward others or themselves, and people should not shun them simply because they want to stop themselves from doing anything further. And they should not be afraid to approach such people or organizations. If everybody out there wants to have an opinion on how much society sucks, then think about this. Let's make sure everybody understands the shoulder they can lean on before we show them the boot that'll kick them in the ass. It takes a village to raise a child, but I say it also takes a village to raise an idiot. Now, I'm sorry if all that sounds a little preachy, and I did consider skipping over all this and being done with it. But this isn't the only time any of us have heard about this sort of thing happening, and I feel like this is a legitimate time to make a point about it. But to go back to the good, controversy shouldn't be the only thing that's allowed to be remembered about something, or you risk losing or destroying the art and the good that was made despite of or outside of the controversies. The rest of the team should be remembered not just for the good work they gave us and their skill, but also their perseverance to get as far as they did, even if in the end they called it quits. Versus Sonic.exe, as well as all other works in this fandom and other mediums, should be allowed to be enjoyed on their own merits. The material involved with the bad actors has been removed so that the mod could continue to exist without the stigma. And even the fact it was cancelled and left us with pieces of what could have been doesn't need to be a major memory of it. The work this team created was great and worth sharing before all the fiascos occurred. And today and in the future will continue being great and worth sharing for the same reasons as before. If you want to support the people that worked on any of these projects, or any of the fan works, then please do so. We won't get to see what new art and creations they can give us otherwise. Just remember that they probably don't want to be reminded of all the rough things they had to deal with that we've covered, and would be better served hearing how much you enjoyed what they've done and look forward to hearing what they have to do for the future. And while I'm being such a Debbie Downer, I might as well bring up the fact that there was somebody on the team that did artwork for one of the removed characters and brought them to life that wasn't involved with all the bad stuff going on. However, he died before he could see the release of, and subsequent removal of, his work. So let's have a moment of silence for Divide before I move on to the happier stuff again. So what I'll do here next is go through and analyze the songs and stages pretty much individually, because each of them is not only home to different characters and presentations, but unfortunately the mod doesn't exactly make clear who these characters are and where they came from or anything like that. So I'll touch a bit on the backgrounds as well. First up, the story mode, where we deal with X himself. He starts off with a goofy goblin kind of look that fits in with a Friday Night Funkin' style, even in his creepier animations. But as the songs go on, things will change. We start with the usual challenge to a rap battle while X is in the middle of some redecorating. Presumably after the events of the first creepypasta. Maybe boyfriend and girlfriend played the game and got sucked in by X, or they were crazy enough to think he'd be a great opponent to a rap battle. Either way, X takes them up on the offer and plays along. The animation and pace of the song suggest X literally is just playing along, toying with them like he did his other victims in the stories. Unfortunately, he stops playing around when he gets something he never dealt with before. Defeat. X just decides to end things, but girlfriend uses her demonic powers a couple times to get X to knock it off and sing a little bit more. Yeah, if you haven't seen my Blue Balls Incident videos, I give details on her having those powers in there if you want more explanation, but she does officially have them in the original games. So as they try to walk off, X is ready for round 2, and this time actually looks frightening. I'll point out in all 3 of these songs, there's plenty of scares and surprises that come up as you play, and in this second song you'll start seeing phantom notes that damage you if you push them. More interestingly though, a lot of his animations in this song have X looking at the screen, like he knows you're the one controlling boyfriend and helping him win. And with him pointing at boyfriend, that feels like he's threatening you that you'll be in there with him soon enough. Also, at one point, it switches over to Genesis graphics, and at first I thought that was a nice little touch, but then I realized it's almost like he's trying to pull you deeper into the game. And when that doesn't work, he gets really mad. Honestly, I love this song. It has a very dark and heavy rock feel to it that drives home this is something full of rage singing at you. And in most other games, it would feel like a boss song. I also think the unfinished build version of it has better presentation with additional animations after the Genesis segment to show just how royally angry X is getting. So coming up next is probably the most memorable moment of the mod for those that witnessed it. And while a number of Friday Night Funkin' mods can be said to have big boss battle songs in them, this finale clocks in around 8 minutes long with multiple singers. Those damn souls that X is tortured and trapped in the game get thrown at you to wear you down as Xenophanes pops in between them to try to finish you off as the game and its programming falls apart around you. Now, Xenophanes is part of the new canon I mentioned a while back that the new owner of the creepypasta is working on, and it seems to be the true form and name of X, or close enough to it. So, yeah, Good work on that nightmare design. The song isn't so much a rage-filled attack like the previous one was, but it does fit the bill as an endurance run, as not just the characters, but what they're singing keeps changing up as it goes along, including within their own parts. And come to think of it, it's a lot like how some of the Sonic games have song medleys during their end credits. Huh. Also, the constant shift in perspective is very nifty, and even swaps sides of the arrows sometimes, capping off a varied and continually fresh presentation of the main story songs. The story doesn't get an ending, you just get a screen showing the codes to unlock more songs and hidden secrets in the sound test. However, I do have a theory that I think makes sense about what happens afterwards. I heard something you like this. Let's consider the fact that these three trapped souls are now involved. And while he had them out battling Boyfriend, Xenophanes was not able to defeat Boyfriend and Girlfriend. And, in short, it's canon in the original Friday Night Funkin' game that Boyfriend and Girlfriend can go into and out of a video game. All that considered, it's very plausible that with her powers, Girlfriend could be able to rescue the souls that are trapped in the game and pull them out with her as well, freeing them from the hell Xenophanes had trapped them in. And you can go as far as saying that this is why they entered the game in the first place. Maybe they did want to go on a rescue mission. And there's really nothing stopping the idea from going even further and saying that Daddy Dearest is the one that sealed Xenophanes in the game to begin with, due to not liking him, but I'll be the first one to come out and say even that's a stretch. A fun little thought, and nothing really wrong with a happy ending. Though I suppose if they don't destroy the game after they get out, Xenophanes can just go around capturing more souls. But at least they're safe now. So, there's plenty more songs to get to. What's next? Imagine Sonic might be familiar to those of you who played Sonic CD. He was infamous for years online for showing up as an odd little Easter egg with a developer message while the Robotnik boss music played. This time he has a much more upbeat and jazzy song to go with him, but if you fail, Boyfriend seems to get turned into one of him. I'm not sure how evil he actually is, but this is a sign that not all of the things in this mod are directly pulled from other creepypastas, and are just other creepy things the Sonic franchise has given us. There's also a second version of this song in the unfinished build as well, with updated artwork for the character. Next up is Lord X, a more serious and threatening alternate version of the original X. His big debut was another fan game called Sonic CD Port, and in my opinion was successful in making X a more threatening character. The funny thing is, in version 1 his song Execution and his design for that song got tossed out and replaced in version 2 because the team didn't like how either of it turned out. And I kind of see where they're getting at. Execution was fairly weak compared to the other songs, and his version 1 animations and design made him feel more like someone trying too hard to be scary. In version 2, the direction they took was to make him much less serious about what was going on, though he'll still take Boyfriend's soul if he loses. I think it works better that way because it gives off an aura of somebody who knows he could take you out easily, but hasn't had any good fun in a while.
Ready, set, go!
Now, Tails Doll and his song was one that at first I didn't know what to feel about, but quickly won me over. It's an aggressive song like You Can't Run, but also his voice and jerky movements give the impression that Tails Doll is not just something that's haunted, but also tortured. Though by now you'll notice the art style and presentation have changed quite a bit for this one, with even Boyfriend getting a doll or a 3D model. Now I know Tails Doll originated from Sonic R, an old racing game from the franchise, but as far as creepypasta appearances, it's kind of all over the place, and I'm not sure anybody agrees on a canon with it. In any case, the presentation of this song is something I'll come back to later, because it involves something else I want to get into about the mod as a whole, and another reason that I wanted to talk about it. So, up next is a bit of a surprise compared to the rest of the mod's characters. Now, I know at first you think you're just going up against some version of Super Sonic, But this is actually a canon character from the British comics called Fleetway Supersonic, after the publisher of the comic. Now, effectively, in their canon, the Chaos Energy makes Sonic bloodthirsty and evil when he's transformed. Which I suppose makes sense. He gets a little chaotic using something called Chaos Emeralds. It's also a very unique battle, not just with a surprise laser attack that you have to dodge, but it also has Boyfriend change into a super mode as well. The constant boasting and then breaking down Fleetway gives during the song is a very nice touch as well. In the end, this song felt like it was an actual episode of a story playing out, and I had a lot of fun playing this one. And from there we get to... well, what the hell do I say about this? Sunky is actually a legitimately hidden song in version 2. You have to push up, down, left, right, and then enter at the title screen to play the song. Now, Sunky comes from the fan game, or I guess I should say parody fan game series, Sunky.mpeg. The song is pretty chipper, but the presentation of it was changed between version 2 and the unfinished release, and the song was changed up a bit as well. I actually found myself really enjoying the newer version of the song. The charting and the music just really made me feel the fun coming from it. In a collection of dark and threatening creations, tossing in a parody character like this does seem like a good idea to me. Especially considering the idea this mod is a celebration of all the Sonic.exe works. Then again, maybe we should have stopped at one parody character. Sonic.exe is that meme drawing of Sonic you've seen everywhere, turned evil. And not much else I can explain here except for everything is also a bunch of references to MLG, which is Major League Gaming. It feels like the weakest entry of the characters in the game, and the changes to this song's presentation in the unfinished build really rubbed me the wrong way. This song isn't exactly bad on its own, but something made to be deliberately bad or obnoxious does have the chance of being too successful in what it set out to do. I get and understand why it's here, but this is one of, if not the only song, that I wouldn't want to replay in this mod. And on this topic, I might as well bring this one up now too.
Nothing personal, kid.
Cold Steel the Hedgehog. This is a blatant shot fired at fan original characters and edgelord writing, which is what people see the original Sonic.exe story as a bit these days, as well as some of the fan stories it inspired. The thing that sells me on this song isn't so much the music or the presentation of it, which is still very good and a lot of fun, but how it embraces the fact that so many fan characters like this one can't be taken seriously at all. The song is a pretty good rock number, but accents the suck, so to speak, by breaking down at parts. I see this as what was attempted with Sonic.exe song being done much better. I can say I laughed a couple times when I first tried the song, and even still find it really funny.
Shut up! Fingerless gloves look badass!
But let's move on to the last few songs now, and like Cold Steel, these are from the unfinished build. I'll start with Needle Mouse, and we're getting into stories inspired by Sonic.exe that tried to be something original or unique, instead of simply trying to salvage the idea of X. Now this setup comes from a YouTube series that's called Needle Mouse, and if you don't go watch it to understand what's going on here, I'll give the basic idea that this version of the cursed game it's an incomplete build of a Sonic game, irony not lost on me here, possessed by a ghost that's trying to get revenge. It seems in this song, though, the ghost is more interested in just having a fun time, and the music is a really jaunty and upbeat one that, once again, sounds great. Just don't expect things to go this good if you go watch the actual series these characters are from. A nice song with very artful takes on boyfriend and girlfriend. I can't really say anything bad about this one. And a cursory look into the series it all came from does make me want to take time to check it out some more. So finally we come to the final two songs that are playable in the unfinished build. Pray and Fight or Flight. And I find this villain to be one that's very unique and interesting and dark as hell. Starved, as he's named, is probably my favorite character in all of this, and a wonderful surprise. So what's the background with him? Well, ever wonder what all those cute animal critters in the Sonic games taste like if you ever barbecued them? Robotnik found out, and now he wants to eat all of them, including Sonic and his friends. They might talk, but they're still tasty animals. However, he is amicable toward humans and isn't a cannibal, which means overall, Starved is still a generally normal person with a much darker focus on his hunting activities, which really creeps the hell out of me. His design is frightening, and Fight or Flight is a song that he seems to want to sing as if he's in an opera house, coming off as some kind of Hannibal Lecter as he's waiting to sink his teeth into Tails. It's hard as hell, though, and I've read somewhere it's probably because the mechanics to it haven't been properly fleshed out before the cancellation. The real highlight, I think, though, is Prey, which makes it feel like our whole song battle is going on in an actual Sonic game. Sonic is getting chased, first by a barbecue version of Metal Sonic, and then by Starved himself. And I think all the voices, including actual voice work, fit really well, not just to the song, but the characters themselves. Whoever did Sonic, I think, should actually be picked up for an actual Sonic project.
Seems like that bucket of bullshit will lay up the knife this time around. Hey, Redhead, you might want to repair your toys.
And I also love how both of the songs involving Starved make great use of the various Robotnik boss themes. Just to drive home not just the character, but how terrifying and threatening the confrontations are. In fact, after Starved shows up in Prey, it seems that Sonic is doing his damnedest to get away from him, as if Sonic is the last hope for whatever's left behind him. If there's anything in the unfinished build that shows us a hint of what we missed out on with a complete version 3, it's this stage. But it also highlights one other thing. This is still a Friday Night Funkin' mod. The constant perspective changes in Triple Trouble. Voice acting in some of the songs, and a transforming boyfriend in chaos. Imagine if more time was taken in a stage like Prey, with some jumping around obstacles and such, to make it feel more like an actual Sonic stage. Now after all this, I will still say that I find Blue Balls Incident to be my favorite overall Friday Night Funkin' mod. But at the time it was released, there was a reason Sonic.exe kept getting compared to it or brought up in conversations about what was best or what was a favorite. And since those days, a lot of other mods have come around as well, including ones based off of the cut content from the 3.0 version of Sonic.exe, as well as those unfinished ideas also coming to light as just song releases or stories. And it's one thing to say that Sonic.exe continues to inspire people to have other mods, expanded stories and characters, and even derivative ideas. So with all the originality and uniqueness that mods like this and others have given us, I can only imagine what new things are in store for not just Friday Night Funkin' mods, but just creations in general. I mean, I've come to wonder if there's the possibility of a Friday Night Funkin' mod for Doom or House of the Dead, where hitting the arrows to the beat of the music and the combo strings kill off zombies, like they do in something like Typing of the Dead. There's still a lot of creativity and inspiration out there to be had from many people. And to be clear, nothing needs to be as extravagant or have as much work put into it as the Blue Balls Incident or Versus Sonic.exe, or even newer things like Indie Cross, to be something unique or fresh or memorable. And this is something that's not unique to the Friday Night Funkin' mod community either, but it is a good example of it. The popularity of Friday Night Funkin' and its mods has ignited the creativity in people, and the popularity of it also helps give them a pathway to be able to share that creativity. It's entirely possible that the first steps taken by people in the Friday Night Funkin' community to create mods, popular or not, can lead to their experiences growing to bigger and better things. Remember, the Sonic.exe game a lot of this was based off of was just an experiment about a stupid creepypasta before Miss Crimson started work on something bigger and better. If you want some more information about things that didn't make it into the game, check out the Versus Sonic.exe page on Funkopedia Mods Wiki. I'm not really one to suggest wiki sites like this, but it does have a lot of information I couldn't cover for time or relevance reasons, as well as being a place that can help you find other Friday Night Funkin' mods that you might have an interest in trying out. Another reason I wanted to avoid talking about versus Sonic.exe as a Friday Night Funkin' mod was because after covering the Blue Balls incident, I didn't want to go into something where I'd be comparing the two of them. But in the end, I think it's best to say there really isn't a comparison. Blue Balls incident and versus Sonic.exe have different focuses and goals in mind for what the mods are. The Blue Balls incident is one that focuses a lot on horror and builds its themes around horror. Versus Sonic.exe is more of a tribute to those horror elements, and it also has a focus on great music and fun times playing it without trying to be tied down by themes or anything like that. There's still plenty of room for other mods or creations to be the best at what they set out to do or be without having to be compared to others. In the end, there was much more to this popular mod than just, "It's great!" or "The music is so awesome!" It's much more respectful to the art and creators to take the time to try to understand why it was good, what could have been done better, what we could have learned, and what kind of support can be given for better work, or in some cases, better people. And that's why I call this series Why You Should Care, not why I'm right or why you should listen to my opinions. I'm no expert on anything. I'm just trying to apply logic and common sense and things that I do know and have researched without coming off as some sort of self-centered jackass. I just want to be able to share things that I feel are interesting or can have interesting discussions about them, have a little fun, and even see if the bad things can have inspiration drawn from them. And to wrap this up, that's really the big reason why I chose this to be the topic of my subscriber special video. All of you that supported me with subscriptions, comments, likes, and especially sharing with others, just giving a chance to view things even if you haven't watched all the way through, that does give me the confidence and feeling that I am talking about these things in a way that's respectful not just to the work but also the people viewing these videos. Or to put it another way, I'm not afraid of whether or not people are going to be seeing me as talking about stuff for easy clicks or easy views, easy attention. And I especially enjoy being able to use the comments as a way to give you voice to your opinions on these things. So, one last time, I want to give a very grateful thank you to everybody out there for the support you've given me, no matter how small it seemed or felt or whatever. And I do hope you'll be sharing that kind of support with others out there as well. Take care, everybody, and I do hope to see you again in my other videos soon. Ah! Yeah, check that out. You got like 3 seconds on me that time. Yeah, you're getting better at this. That doesn't mean I want to try to have fun with these things. You want to watch the subscriber tribute with us?